Hey everybody, this is Joe from HomeStudioCorner.com. Today I want to talk to you about how important it is to get things right at the source. Now, you've heard me talk about that a lot before, especially if you're subscribed to my newsletter. But today I want to show you, I just want you to hear what that sounds like in a very specific example. So here's a song that I just finished up mixing. This is actually the song that I used in last week's video about that nifty little delay trick at the end of the song. But here's the beginning of the song, and I actually just finished with these mixes this morning, and let me just give you a quick snippet of the beginning of it. Okay, now I want to hone in on just the electric guitars here for a second, because this was an interesting song. So I started recording this song, and I had my Les Paul guitar, Gibson Les Paul humbucker pickups, and recorded everything. And then a few months later, while I was recording other songs, I finally actually bought a Telecaster, which has single coil pickups. Now, if you don't know much about guitars, it's okay. That's not really the point. The point is they sound very different. You've heard them both. Single coils are very thin and they cut through more. Humbuckers tend to be louder and fuller and thicker sounding, and they're just different sounds for different needs. And I realized that this part for this intro section just wasn't working with the Les Paul. It worked okay, but I knew a Tele would have been much better. And let me just show you what I'm talking about. Here's the little intro riff that I originally played with the Les Paul. So I'll zoom in here. This top track that we're listening to, this is the Les Paul, and when I played that intro riff originally. So take a listen to that. So not bad. It's not a bad part, but it gets to this part of the verse where I'm playing this kind of syncopated thing. And it's just not, it just didn't quite have what it needed. So when I got the Tele, I went back, muted that guitar track, and then tracked this one. And I think it turned out a whole lot better. And then on the verse part, versus this. I'm just going to let it play, and I'll just switch back and forth. The top one is the Les Paul, the bottom one is the Tele. So let's just take a listen. And now coming into the verse. So the idea here is I could have EQ'd that Les Paul to sound a little bit more like a Tele, to be a little brighter, take out a little of the mid-range, just try a bunch of mixing tricks to make it sound thinner. But the way the song was written, that little riff at the beginning, it's all just meant for a single coil guitar. So I got one, and that's what I used to record it. And it works much better in the mix, and it doesn't sound like I'm trying to make a Les Paul sound like a Tele. I'm using a Tele for the sound that I need, and it's what's best for the song. So that's when I talk about getting it right at the source. Hopefully that's a real practical example that you can refer back to in your brain next time you're recording something, to know that you may just have the wrong instrument for the part, or the wrong part entirely. And no matter what you do later on in mixing, if you don't have the right part at the beginning, you're going to have a hard time pulling that off in the final version of the song. So listen to that. This is the Tele, the final version in the mix, and listen to how it cuts through and it just fills out really nicely.
Fountain filled with light, drawn from
One thing you may notice there on that verse, there's a guitar on the left and the right playing the exact same part. The one on the left is a Les Paul. I left that other Les Paul track, and the right is the Tele. So you've got kind of the best of both worlds. But with two Les Pauls, it was just too thick, not enough grit, not enough twang, and that's what I needed out of the Tele. So I hope this was helpful for you, gave you just a real practical example of what it means to get it right at the source, what that looks like, and how it made the mix so much easier to do because the part sounded like I needed it to sound without even putting an EQ plugin on there, much less doing all the other stuff you have to do when you're mixing. Hope that was helpful for you. Thanks again. I'm Joe from HomeStudioCorner.com. I've got a lot of other videos on YouTube you can check out, articles and things over at HomeStudioCorner.com. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you in next week's video.